Hello everyone, Stepan here, welcome to Hanging Pawns. Today I'm finally starting a new opening series. I've finished with the Sicilian and now we're on to the Italian game, and I have to say I'm very happy to start this series because the Italian is my favorite opening with the white pieces and that's what I prefer playing. And in the next 7 videos I'm going to try and go through each main variation in the Italian game and try to explain each in depth. And this is going to be an introductory video in which I'm going to go over all the variations and mention all the key ideas for black and for white. And I'm going to try to explain the weak squares, the piece positioning, and the attacking possibility of the Italian game for white. So the variations which we are going to go through in the Italian they will range from very aggressive to very positional openings, and the Italian is one of those openings in which you could get a very fast, exciting game, more exciting and more aggressive than the Sicilian defense and many gambit positions. And you could also have a positional and strategic maneuvering game similar to the Roy Lopez or some other slower openings. Now the Italian is probably one of the 2 oldest openings. It's been played since the 16th century on the highest level, let's say. It's been mentioned in all the oldest chess manuscripts, and it's been played by all the Renaissance players, and it's been heavily analyzed since the 16th and the 17th century. So it's an opening which is very well known. It was given its name because the theory was mainly developed in Italy in the 16th century. Now the opening starts after pawn to e4 for white, pawn to e5, the king's pawn opening, knight to f3, knight to c6, and white continues with bishop to c4. And this is the Italian opening. In this position, of course, white could go for bishop to b5, which is the Roy Lopez. I've been through that opening. And bishop to c4 is the Italian. Now, the attacking possibilities of the bishop on c4 are immense, and that's why I think this opening is popular on all levels. In fact, it's been played in the World Championship, and it's been played in probably every kids tournament around the world. It's one of the most popular openings, regardless of the player's level. Now the idea behind bishop to c4 is quite obvious. You are developing your bishop to the most active square. In the Roy Lopez, once you develop your bishop to b5, you are indirectly attacking the e5 pawn. So with your bishop on b5, e5 is attacked. With your bishop on c4, you are simply attacking the weakness in black's camp. And in most king pawn openings, once the black pawn has moved from e7 to e5, the f7 pawn is weakened, and bishop to c4 is simply exploiting that fact. Secondly, white is preparing to castle, and bishop to c4 is one of the most logical moves in the position. White is preparing to castle kingside and have a safe king. Now, the 2 main branches in the Italian game are the Giuoco Piano and the 2 knights game, either knight to f6 or bishop to c5. And 2 sidelines, 2 variations which aren't as popular are the Hungarian Defense with bishop to e7 and pawn to d6, which leads to the more passive positions in the Italian and slower games, the Giuoco Pianissimo. The first variation I'm going to go through in several videos is bishop to c5. And this is, you could argue, the most active move for black. Black is putting pressure on white's f2 pawn and playing symmetrically for the moment. And this is probably the most active move, and it avoids a lot of issues with the white knight coming to g5, which knight to f6 doesn't. And in many lower rated games, you are going to see mistakes regarding the f7 square coming from both sides, either black failing to defend it or white attacking it prematurely. And the f7 square is the main weakness in the position, and often the game is going to revolve around that. Now after bishop to c5, we are going to go over 3 main openings, and those 3, I have to say, are completely different. Now, what I prefer playing, and I'm going to show you that first, is castles here, even though that's not the main move, because after knight to f6, white could play d3 here, going for for a transpositional game most often, because after d6 white could play c3 and get into the normal Giuoco Piano. But after knight to f6, white could also play a very aggressive gambit called the Deutsch Gambit. And with pawn to d4, you open up the center, you gambit the pawn, and now you've gone from a positional Italian Giuoco Piano game to a very aggressive gambit position in which you gave up a pawn for a lot of activity. And there are a lot of ways black could go wrong here. For example, if black takes with the pawn, the position is equal, but after e5, the position is quite aggressive. White continues with d5, you take here, black takes here, you take here, and you can see that there are a lot of attacking possibilities for both sides. Now in the main line, after d4, once bishop takes and knight takes f4, there are still a lot of ways for black to go wrong. For example, black could blunder with knight to c6, and you get to sacrifice on f7. As I said, that's the main weakness. And after king takes, pawn takes, knight takes, queen check. So the Deutsch Gambit is a very aggressive idea which could lead to some exciting games. So this is going to be a separate video. Once again, I'm not going to go into too much detail on each opening. I just want to cover the basics of the opening and show you the potential of the opening, and I'm going to cover each separate variation in depth in a separate video. So that's what could happen after castles. So after knight to f6, either d3 or d4. Those are two very different lines. And after bishop to c5, there are two more possibilities for white. One of them is an opening which wasn't played as often until a certain world champion revived it in the late 20th century, Garry Kasparov, and that's the Evans Gambit. Now, the opening was not forgotten, but it wasn't played on the highest level until he started playing it again. And the Evans Gambit starts with pawn to b4, attacking the bishop, sacrificing a pawn. And after bishop takes b4, c3, bishop to a5, d4, e takes d4, and now you castle. You seemingly give up another pawn which can't really be taken, but we are going to go over that in a separate video. So the Evans Gambit, a very aggressive option for white. So already you can see that white has numerous possibilities even on move 5. So on move 4. And that's what happens after castles. Now the main line, I like playing castles because I either get into the Deutsch Gambit or the Evans Gambit, which are very aggressive positions. The main line is what I started playing recently and what I found to be one of the most comfortable positions I've ever played. And I've only played one tournament game, and I've done a lot of studying, and one tournament game I played, I won it, and I had an easy time winning it because I understood the position well. And the main line is pawn to c3. This is the classical variation of the Italian game. And now I'm not going to go into all the plans in depth here. I just want to show you what the basic ideas are. So black plays knight to f6. You play d3, solidifying your e4 pawn. Black plays d6, solidifying his e5 pawn. And the main ideas in this position is that white wants to go for a sort of Roy Lopez plan with transferring his knight from d2 to f1 to either e3 or g3. Black wants to do the same thing, play knight to e7 and knight to g6, and both sides are going to try to put their knights on f5. This is one of the main attacking plans in the position. Secondly, you can see that white basically has a pawn advantage in the center because white has the pawn on c3 and black has a knight on c6, so black can't do the same thing. And white can, in many positions, play pawn to d4 and block out the bishop on c5. And that's why in many positions after castles here, black is going to play a6, anticipating the move d4. And white doesn't have to play it immediately, but it's always on the cards. And white's main idea here is to preserve his bishop. You can lose it under favorable circumstances. You can trade it for black's light squared bishop, but you don't want to give it up for your knight. So white's one of white's main moves here is bishop to b3, and bishop to b3 should be played whenever black defends his pawn. If the pawn hasn't been defended with d6, then knight to a5 ideas don't work because the e5 pawn is hanging. But once the pawn has been defended, then knight to a5 is a threat, and you don't want to leave your bishop on c4 so that black can't take it. That's why you play bishop to b3, and if black makes a mistake of playing knight to a5, you play bishop to c2, and your main attacking plan is on the king side. You are going to put pressure on black's king side and always be that one tempo up, and always have that pawn majority in the center, thus being able to block out the dark squared bishop in black's position. And this is one of the key attacking pieces for black, and once you manage to block it out with d4, then you are going to have a comfortable game. So this main line of the Italian is one of the most amazing openings you could play, and the theory is immense. The positions you have to study are similar but different at the same time. There are a lot of nuances, and as I said, it's been played at the highest level. You could study it for 100 years and not be good at it, but I think it's one of the best variations to go for if you want to learn chess properly, because it involves positional chess, strategy, weak squares, piece positioning, tactics, and attacking plans which you have to employ in order to break through. Because even though black's position is always going to be slightly worse than white's, you have to know how to utilize your small advantages. And the mainline Italian, the Italian game, and this is what it basically revolves around, you have to be able to utilize small advantages and grow them into bigger ones. That's why I think the opening is amazing. So this is the main line with bishop to c5. The second most popular move after bishop to c4 is knight to f6. Now, this is a whole different game, and this move is probably one of... I love seeing this move on the board, because I know that it could be a very exciting game, and I know that it will lead to a lot of excitement. And I've played this position probably 20 or 30 times in tournament games, and I've played several different variations, and we are going to go through all of them. Now, the passive move you could play here is d3, which is the two knights defense, the modern bishop opening. And d3 is the most solid move, after which black either continues with bishop to e7 or bishop to c5, both sides castle, and you have a similar game to what I've just shown you, but different but similar, because it's strategical. It will involve lots of maneuvering, and once again, remember about these plans. Knight to a5 doesn't work until the pawn is defended, etc. So this is one thing. However, after knight to f6, white doesn't have to go for d3. White can play one of the most exciting moves in all of chess, and that's the move knight to g5, the knight attack. And the knight attack, if you're unfamiliar with the position, you might think that black is already in trouble, because the f7 pawn is attacked twice. And that's probably the reason why most people choose to play bishop to c5 before knight to f6, because if the bishop had already been developed to c5, black could easily castle in this position. And in all of these lines, once white has played knight to g5, if you are black and you can castle, that's good. If you can't castle, then you have to struggle. Now, this position is fine for black, of course. There's nothing wrong with the position. It's theoretical and black is fine, but it will be sharp. Now, the only move for black here, if you don't want to play something extremely risky, I would say is the move d5. And after d5, you could go into several different variations. Now, the main move for white here is, of course, to take. So e takes d5. And now black could play several different things. The main line, which you are going to see in almost every Grandmaster game, is knight to a5. And after knight to a5, bishop check, pawn here takes. The bishop can retreat either to d3 or to e2. And as you can see, black has given up a pawn, but black has a lot of activity and the lead in development. Once the bishop retreats, and by the way, bishop to d3 and bishop to e2 are two completely different moves. I've started out playing bishop to e2, and I've played that for about 2 years, and only recently I've switched to bishop to d3, which I think is more positional and harder to learn, but not too many people are prepared for that well. So now I prefer this move. Once again, we are going to go each move in depth in a separate video, and we are going to cover all of that. So that's the main move, knight to a5. If you don't play knight to a5 as black, you can play b5. And after b5, bishop to f1, the variation continues that way. And the third possible move is knight to d4, which is once again completely different. So after c3, b5, bishop to f1, you get a lot of excitement as well. So this would be the main line, taking, and playing either knight to a5, b5, or knight to d4. Now, a common mistake that people make is to take the second time on d5, and that leads to the fried liver attack, the famous fried liver attack. We are going to go over the fried liver in a separate video in depth, and I'm going to teach you how to crush black with in the fried liver, because I think white just always wins. So the mistake happens after knight takes d5, and now white has two options. White can either play d4, which is considered to be better and to give white a greater advantage, and after bishop e6, knight takes e6, f takes e6, d takes e5, bishop c5, white is better, obviously. Or after knight takes d5, white could go for the fried liver attack, and the fried liver is knight takes f7, and of course the king has to take. After king takes, queen to f3 check. The only way to get out of check and to defend the knight, which is attacked twice and you don't want to give it back because you would just be losing, is king here, and now knight to c3. And you can see that white has given up a piece. Black is in a lot of trouble. I would always rather be a piece down than have my king stuck on e6 and have all of this going on, and black is in trouble. So anyway, in the fried liver, the engines think the position is equal. It's not equal. You can't survive this if you play this against a good player. So this is one thing. And I think after knight to f6, knight to g5 is a very exciting opening, and I think that you're going to have a lot of fun playing this. Now there's another way black would choose to play. That's the Traxler Gambit with bishop to c5, the Traxler counterattack. And this is a whole different story. And I've seen a grandmaster game analyzed until a draw, in fact, and I'm going to go over that in a separate video. So I'm going to teach you how to react to this with white pieces. And if you know this, you could win some easy points, especially in blitz games, but in tournament games as well, because there might be some stronger opponents who try to bully you with the Traxler. Now there are two moves here. Obviously, you're in a lot of trouble if you take with the knight. But, as I said, it's been calculated to a draw. It's tempting to take with the knight, you're attacking both the queen and the bishop, but then there is a lot of pressure coming here. You can see that, and your king could be in a world of pain if you don't know what you're doing. If you do know, then it's a draw. But the best move here is to take with the bishop, because you take with check. And after the king moves, you just castle develop normally. You can either play bishop to d5 going back, or bishop to b3 and simply be a pawn up and have a better position. So I think taking with the bishop is better. So after knight to f6, knight to g5, we are going to go over some extremely exciting openings. So we are going to cover the fried liver attack. We are going to cover the main line with d5, e takes d5, knight to a5, and all the other side lines. And we are going to go over the Traxler. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I enjoy playing all of this. I've played all of this a lot of times. And I really don't like playing d3 to knight to f6 because, well, it could transpose after bishop to c5 and c3 to the mainline Italian game. But I think you should use your initiative here and use the fact that you can put pressure on the f7 pawn. And this position with d5, the main line in which you're a pawn up, I think it's much better for white than it is for black. And I'm just going to rush through the main line. I think here white is just better, and you can justify the lack in development. You can of course see that black is more active, but you're a pawn up. A pawn is a pawn. So yeah, these are the variations that we are going to go over, and it will be 7 videos on each separate one, going into a lot of depth. And yeah, the last one is going to be the Hungarian defense. Let me just run through that quickly. So bishop to e7, and this is also a very fun opening if black doesn't know what he's doing. So after bishop to e7, you can play d4, and the main move for black is d6, going into sort of a scotch position. But after d4, if black takes, you can play c3, and then let's say black takes again, which has happened. You can play queen to d5, put a lot of pressure here, and have some exciting positions too. And I've faced the Hungarian defense when I was playing my coach 2 years ago. We played a practice game, 90 plus 30, so a serious tournament game, but it was exhibition. And he's a FIDE Master 2350, and I actually had an even position. I was slightly better, and they managed to lose on time in the end. Not on time, but I was in time trouble, and I blundered with a minute on the clock. So the Hungarian defense, if you understand the Italian, is actually favorable for white, and that's why it's not played that commonly at the highest level, but still I'm going to teach you how to play against it. And we are going to go over the variations such as this one, in which white obviously has an edge. So let's just go through the basics once again. So after bishop to c4, you have the Italian game, and I think that if you want to play something solid against the king's pawn opening and the main line with knight to c6, the Italian could be a better choice than the Roy Lopez. It's definitely a more fun choice. I think you could get a lot of fun playing these variations as opposed to the Roy Lopez, in which most games are positional and strategical. So if you prefer attacking chess, choose the Italian against the king's pawn opening. And also, it will teach you all the aspects of chess, because the Italian, once again, involves positional chess, strategical chess, and tactical chess. And playing the Italian will improve your skills at all three. Now, all the thematic plans, the weakness on f7, the light squared bishop for white, the blocking out the black's bishop from with d4, and all the thematic ideas are going to be covered in separate videos, and I hope it's going to be a shorter series than the Sicilian, not shorter in the number of videos it is, but shorter in the span of time, and I hope to finish it more quickly and to go through all of the variations, because lately I've actually been improving my theory and going more and more in depth in the Italian up to move 20 or 25, so I think it will be very instructive, and I hope it will teach you how to play against the king's pawn better. Let me know what you think about the series. Let me know which video you are looking forward to the most, so I know in which order to record them. Let me know what you play in the Italian, and yeah, thanks for watching. I hope this helps. I hope the series will be instructive, and stay tuned for more chess. See you tomorrow with the first video. Bye bye.